The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with excitement. Representatives from over 200 spacefaring civilizations had gathered for an unprecedented announcement. A new species had achieved faster-than-light travel. The massive chamber, with its towering crystal walls that stretched up into the artificial atmosphere of Station Alpha, had seen many first contacts, but this one felt different. Ambassador Marcus Reed stood alone in the waiting chamber, adjusting his plain black uniform. His reflection in the polished metal walls showed a man in his 50s, with graying hair and steady eyes. He would be Earth's first representative to the Council, and he knew the importance of making a good impression. The small silver pin on his collar, showing Earth's flag, felt heavier than usual. Inside the Council chamber, the initial sensor readings from human space were causing quite a stir. The gathered aliens passed around data tablets, their reactions ranging from amusement to outright laughter. "These can't be right," rumbled Council member Blackspine, his massive scaled form towering over the other representatives. "Their ships are barely larger than our orbital shuttles. Perhaps our sensors are malfunctioning," chittered Representative Bluesong, her crystalline form sparkling under the chamber's lights. "No spacefaring race would build vessels so tiny." High Counselor Drake, an ancient being with silver skin that rippled like mercury, raised a hand for silence. "Let us not judge hastily. The human representative awaits." The massive doors slid open with a soft hum, and Marcus Reed walked into the chamber. He had been briefed about the Council's variety of species, but seeing them in person still took his breath away. Giants of living crystal sat next to beings of pure energy, while others looked almost human save for subtle differences. All of them, he noticed, were staring at him with varying degrees of curiosity and dismissal. "Welcome, Ambassador Reed of Earth," High Counselor Drake's voice echoed through the chamber. "We have reviewed your credentials and the initial data from your space. However," he paused, gesturing to the massive holographic display above the chamber center, "there seems to be some confusion regarding your fleet specifications." The display showed a comparative analysis. The smallest galactic standard cruiser was nearly 20 times the size of Earth's largest battleship. The Council chamber filled with poorly concealed chuckles. Reed smiled politely, remembering his briefing. Earth's military command had been explicit. "Let them underestimate us. The specifications are correct, High Counselor. We believe in efficiency over size." "Efficiency," boomed Blackspine, not bothering to hide his amusement. "Those aren't warships. They're escape pods. One shot from a standard cruiser would vaporize your entire fleet." More laughter echoed through the chamber. Reed maintained his diplomatic smile, even as he noticed several representatives making gestures that he assumed were their species' equivalent of eye-rolling or head-shaking. Nevertheless, High Counselor Drake continued, trying to maintain decorum, "We welcome Earth to the galactic community. You will be granted observer status, pending full membership review. However," he leaned forward, his mercury-like face rippling with concern, "I must warn you. The galaxy can be dangerous for developing civilizations. Perhaps Earth would benefit from the protection of a more established power." Reed's smile didn't waver. "Thank you for your concern, High Counselor. However, Earth prefers to maintain its independence." "Admirable," rumbled Blackspine, "but foolish. The Dominion Empire has been eyeing your sector of space. When they see these sensor readings," he gestured at the holographic display of Earth's tiny ships, "well, I wouldn't expect your independence to last long." Reed straightened his back, standing tall despite being dwarfed by most of the chamber's occupants. "Earth has survived many challenges, Council member Blackspine. We're quite adaptable." As the formal proceedings continued, Reed noticed the dismissive glances, the barely hidden smirks, the patronizing tones. None of them suspected the truth, that Earth's ships were small because they didn't need to be large. None of them guessed that humanity had cracked the code of efficient energy usage and AI-assisted targeting systems. None of them knew that every tiny human vessel carried enough firepower to match their largest dreadnoughts. And that, Reed thought as he made his polite farewells, was exactly how Earth wanted it. Let them laugh. Let them mock. Let them underestimate. They would learn soon enough. Admiral Jane Cooper stood at the main viewport of Earth's Defense Command, her gray eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the approaching Dominion fleet. The massive ships looked like predatory fish, their dark hulls gleaming under distant starlight. Each one was bigger than a small city. "They're not even trying to hide their numbers," she muttered, watching as more enemy ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. "They want us to see them coming." Behind her, the command center hummed with quiet activity. Officers moved between stations with practiced efficiency, their faces calm despite the incoming threat. The room itself was surprisingly small compared to what most alien races use. Another example of humanity's preference for compact, efficient design. A young officer approached with a data tablet. "Admiral, the Dominion's message is being broadcast on all frequencies. They're not bothering to encode it." Cooper nodded. "Put it on screen." The holographic display shifted, showing the imposing figure of the Dominion's fleet commander. His species looked almost like a mix between a lion and a dragon, with golden scales and a thick mane of what looked like metallic filaments. "People of Earth," the alien commander's voice boomed, "I am Supreme Fleet Commander Razak of the Dominion Empire. Our scans show your pitiful defensive capabilities. You have 6 hours to surrender and accept your place as a protectorate of the Dominion. Resistance would be—" He paused, showing sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. "Unfortunate." Cooper switched off the message and turned to her staff. "Status of Operation Small Wonder. All ships are in position, Admiral," reported Captain Tom Miller from his station. "The asteroid belt is ready. Mining platforms are showing as abandoned on their scans, just as planned." Cooper allowed herself a small smile. 3 months ago, when they'd first detected the Dominion's interest in Earth, they'd begun preparing. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had been transformed into humanity's perfect defensive position, though the Dominion would never guess how. "Remember when we first cracked microfusion?" she asked, more to herself than her staff. "Everyone said we were going in the wrong direction. That bigger ships were better ships." She remembered those early days of human spaceflight. While other races built ever larger vessels, humanity had gone the opposite way. They'd perfected miniaturization, developed AI systems that could replace entire crews, and created weapons that could fit in a pocket but punch through a cruiser's shields. The door slid open, and Ambassador Reed walked in. He'd just returned from another council session, where Earth's defenses had been mocked yet again. "The council's official position," he reported, his voice dry, "is that we should surrender gracefully and accept Dominion protection. Apparently, they believe it would be more humane than watching our fleet be destroyed." "Did you tell them our decision?" Cooper asked. Reed's diplomatic mask cracked into a grin. "I used the exact words you suggested, Admiral. I told them, 'Come and find out.'" Cooper turned back to the tactical display. Nearly 300 Dominion warships had now assembled at the edge of the solar system. Each one was massive, bristling with weapons that could crack a planet. By any normal military calculation, Earth's fleet of small ships shouldn't stand a chance. But Earth's ships weren't normal. "Send the evacuation order for all civilian ships in the belt," Cooper commanded. "Then broadcast our response to the Dominion." She stepped forward, straightening her uniform. The camera drones positioned themselves, and she began. "Dominion Fleet Command, this is Admiral Jane Cooper of Earth Defense. We have received your demand for surrender. Our response is simple. Earth is protected. By choice and design, our ships may be smaller than yours, but do not mistake size for weakness. You have 6 hours to withdraw from Earth space. After that," she smiled, thinking of the surprises hidden throughout the asteroid belt, "we will not guarantee your safety." As the message was sent, Cooper watched the Dominion fleet on the tactical display. They were arranging themselves in traditional battle formation, preparing to simply punch through what they saw as token resistance. "They're still not scanning the asteroids properly," Captain Miller reported. "They think we've abandoned the mining platforms." "Good," Cooper replied. "Let them come. It's time to show the galaxy why humanity chose to build small." Supreme Fleet Commander Razak watched with growing satisfaction as his massive fleet approached the asteroid belt. His command ship alone was larger than all of Earth's visible vessels combined. The tactical display showed Earth's tiny ships retreating deeper into the belt, weaving between the rocks like frightened prey. "Pathetic," he growled, his golden mane bristling. "They don't even have the courage to face us in open space." His second-in-command, Officer Drell, studied the sensor readings. "Sir, should we not be concerned about their choice of battlefield? The asteroids could provide cover." "Cover?" Razak laughed, the sound echoing across his enormous bridge. "Our smallest weapons could vaporize those rocks." "No, they're running scared, exactly as expected." The Dominion fleet pressed forward, their huge ships arranging themselves in the Empire's traditional arrowhead formation. Each vessel gleamed like a metal mountain, bristling with weapon ports larger than Earth's entire ships. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. Meanwhile, deep in the asteroid belt, Captain James Wilson sat in his tiny ship, the EDS Swift, watching the approaching armada. His vessel, barely visible against the dark rocket hugged, was smaller than a single weapon port on the Dominion ships. But size, as humanity had learned long ago, could be deceiving. "All systems ready, Captain," his co-pilot reported. "Quantum targeting aligned. Microfusion core at optimal temperature." Wilson touched his command console, connecting to the fleet's encrypted network. Similar reports were coming in from dozens of hidden positions throughout the belt. Earth's ships weren't retreating. They were laying a trap. Admiral Cooper's voice came through the secure channel. "Remember your training. Let them come to us. Wait for my signal." The Dominion fleet entered the belt with all the subtlety of a thunderstorm. Their massive ships pushed smaller asteroids aside with shield impacts, their sensors scanning for Earth's retreating vessels. "Supreme Commander," Officer Drell reported, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from some of the abandoned mining platforms." Razak dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. "Residual power signatures, nothing more. These humans lack even the courage to face their defeat. Push forward." The first sign that something was wrong came when a Dominion cruiser at the edge of their formation suddenly lost power. The enormous ship, large enough to house a small city, went dark without any apparent cause. "Status report," Razak demanded. Before anyone could respond, 2 more ships lost power. Then another, and another. Multiple hull breaches reported across the affected ships. Drell's voice had lost its certainty. "But our sensors didn't detect any weapons fire." Hidden in the shadow of a spinning asteroid, Wilson allowed himself a grim smile. The quantum targeting systems that Earth had developed didn't need to fire visible weapons. Each strike was precisely calculated, hitting microscopic weak points in the Dominion ship's power distribution systems. "This is impossible." Razak roared as more ships began reporting failures. "Where are they? Show me the enemy." "Sir," Drell's voice shook, "we're detecting energy signatures. They're everywhere. The asteroids." "Admiral," Wilson reported through the secure channel. "First wave of targets neutralized. Moving to Phase 2 positions." Throughout the belt, Earth's ships detached from their hiding spots, their small size allowing them to maneuver between rocks that forced the massive Dominion ships to take predictable paths. Each human vessel carried enough firepower to match a Dominion cruiser, packed into a hull that presented almost no target. The trap was sprung. Admiral Cooper's voice came through clear and calm. "All ships, execute attack pattern Delta. Show them why humanity chose efficiency over size." The asteroid belt lit up with weapons fire. Earth's ships struck from all directions, their precise attacks bypassing the Dominion's heavy shields through gaps that only vessels of their size could exploit. The mighty Dominion fleet, which had never known defeat, found itself in a nightmare, being torn apart by an enemy they could barely see. On his command ship, Razak watched in horror as his invincible fleet began to fall to pieces. "This isn't possible," he whispered. "They're so small." But size, as humanity had learned long ago, wasn't everything. And the galaxy was about to learn that lesson too. Officer Drell stood frozen at his station as the tactical display told a story that shouldn't be possible. The mighty Dominion fleet, pride of the Empire, was being systematically taken apart by ships so small they could barely be tracked. Another warning light flashed. 3 more cruisers had just lost power. "Show me their weapons," Supreme Commander Razak roared, his metallic mane standing on end. "How are they doing this?" A human voice answered, broadcasting on all frequencies. It was Admiral Cooper. "Since you asked so nicely, Commander, perhaps it's time for a proper demonstration." The main screen lit up with multiple video feeds. Each one showed a human ship up close, their systems fully visible to Dominion sensors for the first time. The sight defied everything the Dominion knew about spacecraft design. Captain Wilson's voice narrated from his ship, the Swift. "Let's start with size. You wondered why our ships are so small. Look closer at our power cores." The feed zoomed in on a glowing blue sphere no larger than a human fist. It pulsed with contained energy that sent Dominion sensors into confusion. "Microfusion," Wilson explained. "We learned to contain the power of a star in a package smaller than your desk. No need for massive engine rooms when you can do that." Another feed showed a human ship's control center. A single human sat surrounded by holographic displays, working in perfect coordination with invisible systems. "Advanced AI integration," Admiral Cooper continued. "Your ships need crews of thousands. Ours need one person working with an artificial intelligence. Every gram of space is put to optimal use." Razak's bridge crew watched in stunned silence as more secrets were revealed. The human ship's hulls weren't simple metal. They were layered with quantum-linked particles that could redirect energy attacks. Their weapons weren't the giant cannons the Dominion used, but precise instruments that could target microscopic weaknesses with perfect accuracy. "Impossible," Razak whispered. "This technology, it would take centuries." "No," Cooper corrected. "It just takes thinking differently. You built bigger ships because that's what everyone did. We asked why. You added more crew because that's tradition. We asked if there was a better way." On the Swift, Wilson demonstrated their targeting system by disabling another Dominion cruiser's main power with a shot that would have looked like a mere spark to most observers. "Quantum targeting," he explained. "We don't need massive weapons when we can hit exactly the right spot, like hitting the off switch from across the room." The Dominion fleet's formation had completely broken down. The massive ships tried to maneuver in the asteroid field, but they were too big, too clumsy. Every movement exposed them to attacks from multiple angles. "Our ships aren't tiny," Cooper's voice carried a hint of pride. "They're exactly the size they need to be. No bigger, no smaller. Perfect efficiency." Officer Drell studied the sensor readings with new understanding. What they had dismissed as weakness was actually strength. The human vessels could slip through gaps in shields that larger weapons couldn't penetrate. They could hide in sensor shadows that bigger ships would never fit into. Their small size made them nearly impossible to hit, while their advanced targeting systems let them strike with devastating precision. "And here's the real secret," Cooper added. "Everything you're seeing, it's just the start. We've been holding back, trying to avoid unnecessary destruction. Would you like to see what our ships can really do?" To demonstrate, 3 human vessels converged on a disabled Dominion cruiser. Their combined energy beams, focused through quantum-synchronized targeting systems, carved through the massive ship's hull like it was paper. Supreme Commander Razak watched his mighty fleet falling apart, finally understanding the truth. The humans hadn't built small ships because they were primitive. They had built them small because they had surpassed the need for size and brute force. Perhaps, he said slowly, his voice heavy with realization, it is time to discuss terms. A wise choice, Cooper replied. But first, we should contact the Galactic Council. I believe they'll want to see this demonstration as well. After all, there was a smile in her voice. They had so much to say about our tiny fleet. The asteroid belt had become a graveyard of Dominion ships. The massive vessels floated powerless, their hulls dark and cold. Between them, Earth's tiny fleet moved like a swarm of deadly fireflies, their drives glowing bright against the darkness of space. Captain Wilson guided the Swift through a gap between two asteroids barely wider than his ship. Behind him, a Dominion battlecruiser tried to follow and scraped its shields against the rocks, sending sparks into space. They still don't understand, Wilson said to his co-pilot. They keep trying to chase us through these gaps. Dominion ship attempting to fire main weapons, the AI reported. Standard evasion pattern. Wilson smiled. No, let's show them something new. Execute pattern sunburst. The Swift suddenly split its engine output into 8 different directions, making the small ship spin like a dancer while maintaining its forward momentum. The massive energy blast from the Dominion ship passed harmlessly through empty space. All ships implement attack pattern Delta 7. Admiral Cooper's voice came through the command channel. Show them what happens when you combine speed with precision. Across the battlefield, Earth's ships began to move in perfect coordination. They weaved between asteroids in complex patterns, using the rocks as both cover and weapons. When Dominion ships fired their massive weapons, the human vessels simply weren't there anymore. On his command ship, Supreme Commander Razak watched in growing despair as his fleet was systematically dismantled. His ship's size, once a source of pride, had become their greatest weakness. Another cruiser wing disabled. Commander, Officer Drell reported, his voice hollow. They're using our own ships as shields now. It was true. The human vessels had begun darting behind disabled Dominion ships, knowing the active vessels wouldn't risk firing through their own crafts. The battlefield had become a complex, 3-dimensional chess game, and humanity was winning every move. Look at how they move, Drell continued, fascination replacing fear in his voice. Each ship knows exactly where every other ship will be. They're not just small. They're perfectly coordinated. A group of human ships demonstrated this by executing a maneuver that looked like a dance. 5 ships spiraled around each other, their paths forming a complex knot that brought them through a cluster of asteroids. Each ship fired precisely as they emerged, striking 5 different Dominion vessels at exactly the same moment. Multiple hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. A Dominion officer shouted. They're not even hitting us with their main weapons. They're using precise strikes to disable specific systems. Wilson's voice came through the general channel. That's right. We don't need to destroy your ships. We just need to turn off the right parts. Like this. The Swift accelerated suddenly, diving beneath a Dominion destroyer. Its weapons fired 3 quick bursts, each no bigger than a spark. The destroyer's lights flickered and died, its massive bulk beginning to drift. Targeting computers offline. Shield generators failing. We've lost power to the main drive. The reports came in from across the Dominion fleet as more ships fell silent. Earth's vessels had turned the asteroid field into their perfect hunting ground. They used the rocks for cover, the disabled ships as shields, and their small size to maximum advantage. Admiral, Wilson reported, the enemy flagship is isolated. They'd lost their escort screen. Cooper's voice was calm and clear. All ships converge on the flagship. Standard containment pattern. Let's end this. Razak watched as his command ship was surrounded by dozens of human vessels. They moved in perfect formation, creating a web of overlapping fields of fire. His ship, despite being hundreds of times larger than any of theirs, was completely helpless. Commander, Drell said quietly, we've lost contact with 80% of the fleet. The rest are either disabled or surrounded. What are your orders? Razak looked at the tactical display one last time. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Dominion, had been defeated by ships they had laughed at mere hours ago. Send the signal, he said heavily. We surrender. As the white flag signal pulsed out from the Dominion flagship, Earth's ships maintained their positions, their small size belying their absolute control of the battlefield. Size, as the Dominion had learned, wasn't everything. Sometimes, the smallest ships cast the largest shadows. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. The massive holographic display in the center showed footage from the battle, and every alien representative watched in stunned silence as humanity's tiny fleet systematically dismantled the mighty Dominion armada. Ambassador Reeves stood at the speaker's podium, his calm expression a sharp contrast to the chaos around him. Council members whispered to each other, their earlier mockery replaced by a mix of fear and respect. As you can see, Reed said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, size isn't everything. High Counselor Drake's mercury-like form rippled with emotion. This footage, it cannot be real. The Dominion fleet was the strongest in 3 sectors. Would you like to speak to Supreme Commander Razak himself? Reed asked. With a gesture, he brought up a new hologram showing the Dominion commander. The once proud alien leader looked shaken, his golden mane dulled with stress. It is true, Razak confirmed, his voice heavy. The human fleet defeated us completely. Our ships, they were too big, too slow. Their vessels could go anywhere, strike anywhere. We never stood a chance. Council member Blackspine, who had been the loudest in mocking Earth's ships, shifted uncomfortably in his massive seat. But how? Their ships are so small. Perhaps, Reed suggested, you'd like a technical demonstration. He nodded to someone off-screen, and the holographic display changed again. This time it showed the interior of a human ship. The council members leaned forward, finally seeing what they had dismissed before. The microfusion core pulsed with contained power. The quantum targeting systems tracked multiple objects with perfect precision. The AI interfaces coordinated movements that would require hundreds of crew members on their own vessels. We built small because it was smart, Reed explained. Every cubic meter of space requires energy to move it. Every extra crew member needs life support. Every oversized weapon needs more power to fire. He gestured to the display. So we ask ourselves, what if we built ships that only used the space they actually needed? The council chamber erupted in questions. Representatives from dozens of species all wanted to know more about human technology. Some looked afraid, others impressed, but none were laughing now. Order. High Counselor Drake's voice boomed through the chamber. Ambassador Reed, your demonstration is compelling, but surely you understand this changes everything. The balance of power remains exactly as it should be, Reed interrupted smoothly. Earth has no interest in conquest or dominion. We simply wish to be left in peace. He paused, allowing a small smile. Though we are open to trading some of our technological insights, to properly vetted partners, of course. The chamber buzzed with excited whispers. The possibility of accessing human technology had turned former mockers into eager allies. A new hologram appeared, showing Admiral Cooper standing on the bridge of her command ship. Council members, she said, Earth extends an open hand to those who wish to learn. Our philosophy of efficiency over size could benefit all species, but her voice hardened slightly. We will also maintain our right to defend ourselves. The Dominion fleet learned that lesson the hard way. The display showed a final image. The Dominion's massive ships being towed back to their territory by Earth's tiny vessels. The sight of such small ships pulling the giant crafts seemed to drive the point home more than any words could. The age of building bigger ships just to show power is over, Reed concluded. Earth invites you all to think differently. To build smarter, not larger. To value efficiency over intimidation. High Counselor Drake's form rippled thoughtfully. And if we choose not to change, Reed's smile remained diplomatic, but his eyes carried a hint of steel. Then we will continue to defend ourselves as needed, though I hope today's demonstration has made that unnecessary. The council chamber remained quiet for a long moment. Then, one by one, representatives began to signal their interest in cooperation. Even Blackspine, after a long moment of hesitation, raised his massive hand. The galaxy was changing. The era of the giant ships was ending, and humanity's tiny fleet had started it all. 6 months after the battle that changed everything, the galaxy looked very different. The massive shipyards that had once built giant vessels now stood quiet. In their place, smaller, more efficient facilities had sprung up across dozens of worlds. Everyone wanted to learn from Earth's example. Admiral Cooper walked through one such facility on Mars, where alien representatives watched in fascination as human engineers assembled ships that looked tiny compared to their traditional vessels. The key was changing how we think, she explained to the group, which included former Supreme Commander Rezak, now serving as the Dominion's diplomatic envoy. Bigger isn't always better. Better is better. The demonstration area showed various human innovations. A microfusion core glowed softly in one chamber, powering an entire facility with something the size of a baseball. Next to it, a quantum targeting system demonstrated its precision by threading a beam of light through a series of holes smaller than a pinhead. My people used to build ships big enough to house cities, Razak said, his golden mane now neatly trimmed in the formal diplomatic style. We thought it showed our power. Now I see it only showed our waste. In orbit above Earth, Ambassador Reed hosted another tour, this one for High Counselor Drake and several key council members. They floated through the corridors of a human battleship, marveling at how every space served multiple purposes. One human and one AI, Drake mused, watching a demonstration of the bridge operations, doing the work of 1,000 crew members. Remarkable. Efficiency, Reed replied with a smile. It's not just about ship size. It's about making every resource count. The changes weren't just in shipbuilding. Earth's philosophy of smaller, smarter, better had begun to influence everything from energy production to city planning across the galaxy. Species that had once competed to build the biggest structures now competed to build the most efficient ones. Captain Wilson, now promoted to fleet commander, stood in Earth's Defense Command watching the latest sensor readings. Where once the space lanes had been filled with massive ships moving ponderously between stars, now sleek, smaller vessels darted efficiently along optimized routes. Another trade request from the Crystalline Confederation, is AI reported. They're offering mineral rights to 3 star systems in exchange for our miniaturization technology. Wilson smiled. Earth had become the most sought-after trading partner in known space. Their technology was worth more than gold, their expertise more valuable than vast territories. The same ships that had once been mocked were now the model everyone wanted to copy. In the Galactic Council chamber, the final vote was taking place. The massive holographic display showed the results in real time as species after species voted to adopt Earth's technological standards as the new galactic baseline. Times change, High Counselor Drake announced to the chamber, and we must change with them. Earth has shown us a better way, not through force or intimidation, but through innovation and efficiency. Ambassador Reed stood at his podium, remembering that first day when the council had laughed at Earth's tiny ships. Now those same council members were competing for Earth's attention, eager to learn and adapt. Earth accepts the council's decision, he said formally, and we look forward to helping build a more efficient galaxy for all species. The changes weren't just technological. The galaxy's culture had shifted. The old way of thinking, that bigger meant better, that size meant power, was fading away. In its place, a new philosophy had taken root, one that valued smart design over brute force, efficiency over excess. Admiral Cooper, watching the council session from Earth, turned to her staff with pride. They're not laughing at our tiny fleet anymore. No, Captain Wilson agreed, standing beside her. Now they're building them. As the council session ended, ships of all species departed the station. But they weren't the giant vessels of the past. Instead, a fleet of smaller, sleeker ships filled the stars, each one a testament to humanity's influence on the galaxy. The age of the giant ships was over. The future belonged to those who understood that true power didn't come from size, but from how well you used what you had. And it had all started because some aliens had mocked a tiny fleet until they saw it was human ships.